Our success is the extent to which we help our clients have their success. And that's the mindset that I hope we can get good business leaders do this and good HR leaders do this as well.
This week's guest on the DesignRush podcast is Dr. Dave Ulrich. He's a co-founder of the RBL Group, a leadership and HR consulting firm, and a trusted advisor to Fortune 500 companies. He's often referred to as the father of modern HR. And given that he's authored more than 30 books on the topic and developed frameworks that redefined HR's role in business, he's certainly earned the title. Dave's mission, helping companies turn talent, leadership, and culture into real business results. If you're a CEO, HR leader, or leader within your company, this episode is for you. We're going to discuss driving stakeholder value, pivoting to new strategies, and adopting old ones, and so much more. Watch the episode on YouTube, listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This is the DesignRush Podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Got a story worth sharing? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the best industry insights. Hi, Dave. It's such an honor to have you here with us today. To kick things off, we're going to have some fun and start out with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for me?
Ready.
Amazing. All right, so my first question is, morning person or night owl?
Morning, no question.
Favorite country you visited?
My favorite place to visit is home, but if I had to pick a place outside of home, it's probably New Zealand.
What's the biggest myth about HR?
That HR is about HR. HR is not about HR.
Talent, leadership, or culture, which should be your top focus?
Our research shows culture. Love to talk about culture, but all three.
AI in HR, would you say it's a game changer or overhyped?
Both. It changes the game and it's still overhyped. We cannot have a discussion without talking about AI all the time.
Thanks so much for playing along, Dave. Those were actually some great answers. Now we're going to dive into the heart of today's discussion. So I'd love to start out with your groundbreaking work that you've had on stakeholder value and how it's redefining success for organizations. You know, Dave, you've been widely recognized as the father of modern HR. Your book, Reinventing the Organization, it's become a cornerstone for understanding how to build adaptable, purpose-driven companies. How did the idea in reinventing the organization shape your thinking around creating value, not just for employees, but for all stakeholders connected to a business?
You know, the principle is universal and timeless. Values defined by the receiver. Here's the timeless nature. By the way, father of modern HR, I never named myself that. Others have. When I give my wife a gift, and I said it's our 50th, who defines the value of the gift? She does, not me. Early in our marriage, I gave her tickets to sporting events. And her comment was, enjoy yourself. That's not the gift that I value. It'd be fun to know what gifts you've given to those you love. Well, the same principle applies. HR is not about HR. What we do in HR creates value for somebody else. It's not about what we know. It's about how what we know helps somebody else know and do their job better. And when that mindset pervades, then you say, who are the stakeholders who get value from what we do? Well, traditionally, the dominant stakeholder in HR is the employee, however we call them, the workforce, the people, the skills, the talent. But then I start thinking, are there other humans who get value from interacting with our company? And the answer is, duh. A customer gets value, they get a product or service. An investor gets value, they get economic return. The community gets value. The board of directors gets value. And so when I talk about stakeholder value, it's all of those stakeholders. We are here to create value for others, the employee, the executive team, the customer, the investor, the community. And we do that through what our human resource practices focus on.
So when did you first realize that focusing on stakeholder value could actually fundamentally change how organizations achieve long-term success?
Oh, it's so fun. A long time ago, I had the chance to work in a company. It was a retail company, and they did employee engagement. So they had 600 stores, and they had an engagement index for each of the stores. And it was a combination of retention and productivity and attitude, a survey. And I said, let's try something. let's line up those 600 companies by engagement, high to low, and let's line them up by customer scores, whatever customer, net promoter score, customer satisfaction, revenue per targeted customers. So you got two columns, employee engagement, customer engagement. I love statistics. We correlated it, 0.7. Employee engagement is an indicator, and in fact, it's a lead indicator of customer engagement. If you think of a company you love doing business with, whatever it is in retail, I don't know what comes to mind. It could be a hotel, it could be retail, it could be shopping, wherever. I'm going to bet that part of your affect as a customer is tied to the employees you know and work with. We have a restaurant we like. Why do we like it? Because the service is now the food has to be good. I love to eat. I'm good at that. But the food has to be good. But food is food. But it's the service. It's the ambiance that the customer that the employee creates. Anyway, so what's a store you love? Where do you love to shop?
A story of myself where I love to shop.
No, a store, just a store.
Store. Gosh, if I were to say a store, it would be a store where the clothes are a little bit, more on the expensive side. And I'm trying to think. Oh, yes, the name is Mango. So the name is Mango. It's Mango Clothing.
Other stores have good outfits. They can buy clothing. But that ambiance, and you walk in and you feel it immediately. They treat you like the feminine queen or whatever message that's positive. They treat you so well. Well, that's the inside outside. It's the employee inside connecting with the customer outside. Now, we've done research on this, but we all have that experience. If I say to someone, what store do you like to shop at? Why do you shop at one grocery store versus another? And it's the ambiance, it's the feeling. Why do you go to one restaurant versus another? And that's the inside-outside stakeholder view that we've now done research on that validates that. But we all get it through personal experience.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm hearing you. So in terms of reflecting on your career, what would you say has been the most unexpected impact of your work that you are very proud of?
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And the work I do, much of it's in my head. I often talk about my
Yes.
idea friends. And you have to be careful when you have a lot of idea friends because people may think you're a little schizophrenic. And my wife's a psychologist, but I live in my head and I get ideas and I get concepts and then I write them. What shocks me is that anybody reads them and listens to them. I mean, it's just, I go, well, my idea friend and I had a conversation about this last night. And then I write it down and somebody says, well, now I'm part of your conversation. And I'm just delighted with that. It surprises me continually, but I really enjoy ideas and the ideas that have impact. So I'm always a little surprised by that. But on the other hand, that's the work that I enjoy the most, is creating ideas that will have impact for others.
So in essence, you have little minions running around inside your head.
I do. And I hope I don't turn my head too hard because they may fall out. By the way, idea friends are some of the best friends. They put me to bed at night. They wake me up at night. They get up with me in the morning. The danger is, I told my wife again of 50 years, my idea friends are often my best friends. And she said, I thought I was. And I said, sometimes you're a good idea. But yeah, anyway.
So, Dave, your research, consistently shows the connection between stakeholder value and organizational success. Like, can you share a specific example where a company prioritized stakeholder value and then achieved measurable improvements in like loyalty, engagement, or confidence?
Let me give two examples, one with a customer and one with an investor. Customer, a retail store, and this store has 1,000 stores. The new head of human resources, and it's a business leader, did some research. The average basket size, and I'll use dollars, but you can translate very easily. The average basket size is $40. That's what people take out of this store. In stores with a higher employee sentiment, their attitude, their productivity, their engagement, all the employee things that we talk about, the basket size was 48. 20% more basket size in stores that have better employee scores. That company does $100 billion in revenue. She went to the executives and said, I think I have ideas that would take us from $100 billion to 120. Whoa. We're not here to build employee engagement. We're here to move 100 to 120. And I'm making up some numbers here. And they said, well, that's too high. Because a lot of times in the management of people world, you go and say, I'd like $100,000 or $200,000 to run a training program or to hire the right advisory firm, like DesignRush. I want money to. I did another shout out.
I love that puns. Yes, you
but
may
I want,
proceed.
and so she said, I'm not here to get another $100,000 or $200,000 for a project. I'm here to raise revenue from 100 to 120 billion. And they said, well, that's too much. She said, good, 10 billion. And she asked for a lot of money because she wanted to redesign the company with the outcome being very powerful. That's an example. We want to do HR so that it creates value for a customer and it shows up on the income statement. The other example, it's one I love to share, firm in Southeast Asia. It's a $15 billion firm, market value. That's the stock price, the market value. The founder is 80, retiring, wants to build a leadership training center to build the next generation. And so he builds an incredible center. It's an incredible center. And again, I'll use dollars, 400 million. I mean, it's the most incredible training center you can imagine. Fountains, technology, fancy rooms. And he hires a chief learning officer, PhD from Harvard. And he says, your job is to build leadership in this facility. And I want a return on investment. And she called and said, if we put 100 people a year through this training center, it's going to take us 90 years to return $400 million. I mean, it's incredible. And I said, you're thinking wrong. It's not a return on investment. It's a return on intangibles. This company is worth $15 billion market value, US. What if you increase the market value 4% because of the training? That's 600 million. The 400 million has a 50% return. Your job is to build a training center so that those who invest in the company have more confidence in the future. That's called intangible value. Design your training program with a customer in mind. Not a customer, an investor in mind. What would an investor want that would give him or her more confidence in the future of the company? What should we train our leaders to do? Who designs the training? The investor. Who attends the training? The investor. And she started doing that. And to me, that's the mindset shift. And I said in your quick response, HR is not about HR. It's creating value for the customer and for the investor. And those are two examples.
For leaders that are looking to actually adopt this kind of approach that you just mentioned, where exactly should they start, would you say?
Very interesting. Business leaders or HR leaders, often in the organization of people, and let me just give a case and where I hope the case changes. We go in and we say, I want to do investments in my company on talent, hiring, performance management, training, diversity, communication. I want to do investments in culture, agility, innovations, etc. Or leadership. I want to invest in first generation leadership. I say, don't start there. If you're a business leader and somebody's coming in to do a proposal, don't start with the HR, start with the customer. My investment today is to get customers to have a better experience with our company. My investment today is to help investors have more confidence in our future. So the first few, very concrete, the first few PowerPoint slides that we show are not the HR program. The first few PowerPoint slides are, here's how the customer will buy more product. Here's how the investor will give us more financial performance. They'll increase our profitability. When we start our HR discussions from the outside in, not about who we are or what we want, but we start about the value we create for a customer, an investor. I want to create a community reputation so that our company in South Africa or wherever we are has a reputation for service. That's what I'm here to do today. And they'll go, well, I want that too. And you go, good. Now let's show how leadership, talent, organization will help make that happen.
So then how can they measure success? I mean, you were talking earlier about intangible outcomes. So how, besides that, how can they measure success beyond financial metrics?
Well, we get financial metrics, but they're not often in our HR world, we measure success by activity. For example, the classic one, how many people got 40 hours of training? That's an activity. Check, I went to 40 hours of training. In my world, as a university professor, tenure is often determined by how often you published. And I go, that's not very helpful, because and it's a simple measure. What percent of people got 40 hours of training? What was our time to hire? Those are pretty simple, but they're not very good. In my world, all the dean has to do is count, did your name show up in the table of contents? That's not very complicated. Did you publish? How many people got 40 hours? What you're more interested in is, did that training cause a customer to buy more product? Did it cause an investor to have more confidence? Did it build our reputation in the community? And when the measurement is not about the activity, but about the outcome of the activity, that's where the value gets created.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what tools or frameworks do you recommend for quantifying stakeholder value, would you say?
Most of the companies of people listening on the call probably have some great tools in the finance or accounting area, the marketing area. Link what we do in organization and people to those tools. I don't know if this ever happened to you. These are my idea friends telling me, Dave, I'm going to give you an idea that you should have learned 20 years ago. So this is one that I've learned this year. Most of us link our practices to business financials. Did we get cash flow? Did we get revenue? Did we get profitability? Some kind of cash analysis, revenue minus costs or divided by costs. It hit me this year, and we link HR. If I do this HR practice, will I get this financial outcome? Financial goals and financial measures are always lag. We report how much money we made last year. We report how much money we made last month, last quarter. The lead indicator of a financial goal is the customer experience. Because where does revenue come from? Customers buying more. And so what I've tried to do is to say, let's shift HR's focus on the financials, which is, bear with me for a minute with the words, HR can be a lead indicator of a lag outcome. We lead HR and we get a lag outcome of financials. I'd rather be a lead indicator of a lead outcome, which is customer experience. And that customer experience will then lead to financials. So where I hope HR goes is connecting what we do with the lead indicators of financial outcomes. That's customer experience. This retail store, $48 per basket. That's a customer experience. I want HR to drive that. And when we drive that, the business results will follow. We're going to make more money. We'll have more profit. And that's the cycle where I hope I can get HR people moving. I love to go into or business leaders. I love to go into a company and say to the HR people, who are the 10 largest customers of this company? Often they don't know. Who are the 10 customers who left this company and now went to your competitor? They don't know. We should know that. And we should be connecting. So one example, concrete, company does a training program. Day 1's on strategy, day 2's on customers, day 3's on HR, day 4's on technology. We got to get AI in there. But now let's change it. Day 3 in the afternoon, we're going to bring in 4 customers, or 5, a panel, of key customers who have left our company. They no longer shop here. They no longer buy from us. And everybody goes, well, that's kind of scary. And we're bringing them in to say, why not? What caused you to leave doing business with our company? Was it our price? Was it our product? Was it our service? We want to learn from you so that we don't make that happen. So suddenly the training program is not a great theory and ideas. How do we take what you teach us so that we don't lose customers in the future? To me, that's a very concrete idea. And I mean, there's other ideas. A lot of leadership scores are a 360. We do a 360. We do an assessment. Why not do a 720? Why not also get data from a customer, from an investor? And I'll tell one quick story. I'm talking too much, but try to make it specific. I was meeting with an executive team, and there were 10 of the team there. And I said, so if the customers of your company could pick the 10 of you to be executives, how many of you 10 would they pick? And one of the executives quickly said, but they don't know who we are. And I said, that's the problem. They should know who you are. You should be out with, they should know who you are. They should be out with you. The CEO of Mango, and I don't know the store Mango, she or he should be out talking to you. They should get a hold of you because Kia is a key customer. We want her to buy more. We want a high percent of her fashion mindset. And then she'll become an ambassador to other customers. And I actually said to that CEO, to that executive, you should stay in finance where people don't matter. But that was a bad thing to say. But we want you to be out with customers. We want you to spend time. And I see great executives doing that. The CEO of an airline said, I spend a day or two a month going to the airline and flying, sitting with passengers, talking to them, visiting with them, finding out what they need. And I think the more that we get connected to the outside world, the more we bring their expectations into our world.
In your experience, would you say that organizational capabilities often have a greater impact on stakeholder value than individual talent?
In soccer, in the World Cup, the winner of the Golden Boot, so he scores the most points in the World Cup series, has only been on the team that won the World Cup about 15% of the time. Talent matters. You got to have good people. Teamwork matters even more. And that's what our research shows over and over again. Talent alone, good people operating independently are generally not going to succeed as much as the right team or the culture. So you have a workforce, you need a workplace, you need an individual, you need a team. You need talent, competence. The field right now in our field is getting really enamored with skill-based. Skills. I come back and say, if those individual skills don't collectively work together as a team and as a capability, you're not going to have long-term success.
I see. And that's probably why you would say then that this distinction is quite critical because of that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, sports are an easy example. One of the, again, I'm trying to be very concrete. Michael Jordan, you've all heard of him. Best basketball, self-declared. He declares the best basketball player in history and probably was. He won the scoring title. Now, bear with me. He won the scoring title 9 times. Most points in a game, 9 times. 3 times, he did not win the championship. And he scored 36 points a game. 6 times, he won the championship. And he scored 30 points a game. Until his personal scoring dropped from 36 to 30, they didn't win the championship. He's the best player, but his job now is to create the best team. And that's where long-term success comes from. That's a very concrete kind of example of that.
Loving that. Now, in terms of organizational capabilities that I was initially asking in my question, what I want to find out is, how can leaders shift their focus to building these capabilities?
It's fun. We've done research on this. We love data. I love my PhD is in numerical taxonomy, which is data. I think leaders need to be asking the question, given what we're trying to do with customers and investors and finance, the strategy, what do we as an organization need to be known for and good at doing? That's a capability. It sounds like Mango is known for and good at doing great fashion. We have great innovation. They're known for and doing great service. Pick any company in the world. What's that identity? What are they known for and good at doing? That begins to be the organization level capability that we're trying to embed. You can call it a culture. We've done research. There are 3 or 4 across companies, across industries that jump out. One is agility, speed, transformation. Can I move quickly? Can I adjust? Another one that jumps out often is strategic clarity. Do I know what my focus is? Another one that jumps out often is culture. Can I build an identity? Can I build that culture that moves us? Now, that's generic. In different industries, it could be cost. I don't know the stores in South Africa. In America, we have Walmart. They're known for low cost. That's their identity. And you don't go to, given your bias for shopping, you may not have been in a Walmart recently, but when you go to Walmart, you don't expect the same fashion that you would expect at Mango or Nordstrom or some other high-end store.
Yes. I'm hearing you. Okay, so I want us to move over to the role of analytics and AI in HR. Now, Insight 222's 2024 People Analytics Trends Report shows that 94% of business leaders actually agree people analytics elevates HR's impact. However, less than half of HR teams actually adopt it fully, and even fewer use it effectively outside of HR. So why do you think this gap exists, and how can leaders close it to better align HR initiatives with stakeholder needs?
I love the question. A lot of times you go to people, and I'm going to create a bit of a stereotype, and you say, why did you go into HR? Because I like people. My wife's a psychologist, very good psychologist. Why did you go into psychology? Because I like people. And she goes, no. As a psychologist, you often meet people that are not likable. I mean, we keep the barrier between it, but she said, I have met some people that are not, quote, likable, but I love solving the problems that they give. It's just the intellectual curiosity. Why does this happen? Or why does that happen? In HR, we solve the organization and people problems. We bring ideas. Often what we say is, I want to do leadership development. And you say, so why are we doing leadership development instead of performance management, instead of culture change, instead of diversity, instead of communications? Look at all these initiatives. Why are we picking leadership over the other ones? And somebody says, well, because I did it before. That's a terrible answer. Because I sat by a consultant on the airplane and they told me that's what I should do. That's a terrible answer. Why do I pick one priority over another? Because of data, because of evidence. This is the priority that will help me deliver value to my customer, to my investor, to my community, that will show up in profit over time. That company that had the 48 versus 40 basket size, we can increase our value enormously. They gave the head of HR not $500,000 for a training program, but they gave her hundreds of millions of dollars. And then her question was, where do I invest it? Where do I invest it? Is it in salary? Is it in hiring? Is it in training? Is it employee experience? She discovered that for them, the biggest investment impact was first-line manager training. So not training for CEOs or even store manager, but in a shift, you had a manager over a shift of employees. If that manager did her job or his job well, the employees would get their engagement up, and that would lead to the customer engagement. But that's the question that we get from analytics. Analytics gives me guidance about where to invest a scarce resource.
That's so true, hey? Now, what would you say is one specific area where you've consistently seen analytics deliver the most value for organizations?
I think the area, one of them that I hope is coming, is prioritization, not proliferation. Let me tell you what I mean. AI is so hot, and we're going to end up talking AI. You got to say AI because it's so hot. All of the consulting firms, all of the human capital management firms are proliferating new AI solutions. So I get on LinkedIn, I see here's a talent solution, here's a communication solution, AI. The question I've got is, of all that proliferation of solutions, which 2 or 3 should I focus on? That's where analytics will help me. It's like a menu. I love to talk about food because I love to go eat. You go to a great restaurant in Cape Town, or in the United States, we have a restaurant, and if you come, and I'd love to take you and your family, your children, and your partner to a restaurant. It's called Cheesecake Factory. It has 300 menu items. Imagine the loss if there was no structure to that menu. Well, I'm not going to eat 300 items, so which ones work best for me? Which salad, which dessert, which main course, which drink? And I think analytics tells us where should we focus given the proliferation of options.
Totally, 100%. So, Dave, what steps should leaders take to move beyond financial metrics and then begin embedding stakeholder value as a core part of their decision-making processes? What would you say to that?
It's not new. Balanced scorecard has been around a long time. Some of the work that's been done. Look at that balanced scorecard. How do we measure customer engagement? How do we measure revenue per customer? How do we target customers? How do we measure financial results? Profitability, not just profitability, but intangibles. How do we build investor confidence? How do we measure community results? Get focused on that balanced scorecard and then show that the human resource people, I call it human capability, talent, leadership, organization, that those investments play on that scorecard. The scorecard of the business is not HR, it's the business. And the scorecard of the business is the stakeholders.
Now, how can leaders gain buy-in from skeptical stakeholders or board members for this shift, would you say?
If a board member is skeptical, to say, what are you as a board member most worried about? I want this company to have a strategy that works. Good. What's the hardest part to the board member? Creating the strategy or implementing it? Implementing over and over and over again. We can articulate a strategy. We succeed by implementing. What else are you worried about? I'm worried about, as a board member, I have some percent of my board fee tied to the profitability, the share price of the company. Most boards have some. Often I've been on boards where you have to have, I think, 2 years of your board fee in stock options. So if the board fee is 50, you've got to have 100 in stock options. How do you want those to increase? I want those to increase because the investors have confidence in our future. Well, that comes from organization and people that give confidence. And the other one that's fun that we've done with boards is invite somebody to come in who's just lowered their recommendation of you as a company. We've moved you from an A to an A minus. Why? And get the people to talk to the board. We moved you because your products aren't as innovative as they should be. You mean our innovation capability is not what we need to be. If we were more innovative, you'd move us back to an A. Absolutely. Well, get the board members to see the value of that kind of outcome for them.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. What's one HR practice that leaders can start implementing tomorrow to actually drive immediate stakeholder value, would you say?
If I were to pick one that a leader can look at, and it's old research by a colleague named Henry Mintzberg, he looked at where do leaders spend their time. So if I were to say to a leader, and I love doing this, it's a time log. In the last 30 days, what percentage of your time did you spend with employees, with customers, with investors, on the shop floor, in meetings in your office? And the one thing I'd encourage business leaders to say is look at your calendar. Do a calendar test. Am I spending time getting information? And I want to go back to your analytics question. Sometimes the statistics in analytics, the data that you collect through spreadsheets, is out of date. I think executives need to get out with customers and feel how they're feeling. They need to get out in their operations and feel how they're feeling. I'll give one example, quick one. I had the privilege a few years ago of doing a plant tour with a group of outsiders of a plant. And we went around the tour, and everybody was dressed well. They had a collar, they had a lean, they did lean manufacturing, they had the scorecard, and everybody looked great, and this floor was spotless. And we did a 2-hour tour, and we got back in the office, and one of the people I was with looked at the president of the company and the plant manager and some of the members of their team, and he said, "There's a problem here." And he said, "Wow, what?" And he said, because I thought, that was amazing. I was so impressed. You could eat off the floor. And he said, in the last 90 minutes, not one of your team went and talked to an employee privately. How's your mother? She's been sick lately. How's your 12-year-old daughter? She's very organized. She's very on point. Is she doing well in school? How's your 9-year-old son? He's kind of messy. How are you living with it? Those are just hypothetical. How is coaching the soccer team? How is being part of your church? Not once did somebody go have those kind of casual conversations that tell me that you're connecting to these people. And I thought, I missed it. That's the leaders, get out. It was called managing by wandering around. In technology, it's managing by checking in. Check in with your people. Just feel how they are and listen to your instincts.
What would you say then is a common mistake that leaders should avoid when implementing any of these kinds of practices, would you say?
Depending on what you've done in the past. And assuming that what the past will be the exact same for the present. I love to think about children. We have 3 children. We have 10 grandchildren. Each one of them are so different. What we do with one child and one grandchild, we can't do with the other 9. Now, there's some common principles. We love them equally, but we treat them differently. And I think leaders, what you've done before may not be what you need to do today. Learn from the past, but constantly reinvent and recreate your future.
Now, speaking about learning from the past and constantly recreating and reinventing your future, how then would you say leaders can actually measure the impact of this practice in the short term?
I love to keep going back to the measurement issue because at some level you measure perception and activity. You measure, did people like the activity? Did people learn? Did people change behavior? I love to measure outcome. outcome. And the outcome is customer. The outcome is investor. Did the customer buy more? Did the investor have more confidence? Let me tell you why that's true. And I don't often share all the personal examples. When I got my teaching job at the University of Michigan, I had an office. My wife was doing her PhD, and we had 2.5 children. She was pregnant. It's not easy to start a PhD program being pregnant. And I empathize. I mean, I've never obviously been there. But so I stayed home 2 days a week to watch children while she did some of her schoolwork. And the dean said sometimes, Dave, I don't see you in your office because I'm home watching children. And I said, measure my outcome, not my behavior. Am I producing papers? Am I teaching well? And he said, but FaceTime is not always productivity time. And I think we see that today with AI. I don't need to see you. In fact, the big edict is you must come to the office every day. And I'm going, and there's benefit to checking in with each other, but I want to see the outcomes. Did you produce papers? Did you produce ideas? Did you teach well? And sometimes you got to be together to do that. But measuring the results, not just the activity.
For agencies looking to land major clients, how can they incorporate data and insights into their pitches to better demonstrate stakeholder value and actually set themselves apart? I mean, that's the thing, right? You want to set yourself apart as an agency. You want to be unique and you want to stand up and you want to be that guy there,
I'd recommend two things. I love this discussion because I recommend two things. One, bring in some statistics. Get spreadsheet data. What in general do clients in this want in this niche wherever we're serving? It could be in design, it could be in SAP systems, etc. Bring the data, and then tell stories. Tell 2 or 3 stories that anchor the data. I think the data sets the context, and the stories captures the heart. Here's a client who just made a decision. This is what happened. And I love to bring in data that's not always positive. I talked about training before. Here's a client we had that we've lost. We've run into it. Don't run away from it. And don't play the blame game. Who did what? No.
Yeah.
What did we miss that we can learn from? So I love both. And it's often called in the research, it's called structured data. That's the statistics. That's the evidence that I love, doing math, doing statistics, doing analytics. And it's called unstructured data, the observation, the feeling. Bring both of those into the dialogue. I think the unstructured data done well is a lead to the structured data because we should observe, we should feel, and then we can begin to go do the test.
What would you say is one specific metric that agencies should highlight to align with their clients' business priorities?
I would include the client in almost every agency choice.
Right.
We at an agency are hiring some new people. Client, what kind of skills do you need from our people? Very simple question. Would you be willing even to interview the final 3 candidates? You don't get the choice. We make the choice who we hire, but we'd love your input. We'd love your input. One of the airlines in the United States, they often have flight attendants who are final candidates interviewed by customers. We'd love your input. We'd love you to be part of our performance review. We're going to do a performance review of our employees. There are some employees we'd love your input. The 360, not the 720, not the 360. We'd love you to help design our training and development programs so that we have skills you want. Please join us in making that happen. We want to open our doors to you. We want to be participating with you so that we are part of your success and you help us succeed.
I love that you're touching on skills and development programs. I think it's so important that, that is implemented just all around. I believe that we're in a constant state of learning all the time. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in just running everything and, it must run like a machine and then there you go and then that's it. At the end of the day, we are changing and evolving all the time. The landscape is changing. The industries are changing and people change all the time as well. So it's very important that you have those skills and also that development training that is constantly happening. I do agree with you there. Yeah.
I want to work in a company that's serious, that respects what I do, that knows what I do, that cares about what I do. And when you see that sense of caring about you, it's going to get you more engaged. That's the same principle that we want to do with our clients. We want them to know that we care about them. We care about them so much that we're willing to include them in our hiring, in our compensation, in our learning. We're willing to include them because we care about meeting their needs. Our success is the extent to which we help our clients have their success. And that's the mindset that I hope we can get good business leaders do this, and good HR leaders do this as well. Well, it's fascinating because that's what we're trying to create when we build stakeholder value through human capability. We're trying to say, you're a stakeholder, potential employee. How do I help you see that we care for you? And we're going to care just as much for our clients, for our investors, either debt or equity or whoever invests in the company, our communities. And when we build that sense of caring, of being involved, of creating value for others, that creates a company that cycles forward and that moves ahead. So I get excited about that. I think that's not an abstraction. And it goes back, what gifts do you buy your kids or your partner? And the value of the gifts is defined by them. I mean, that's the value.
Dave, there's quite a few effective practices that organizations can adopt to build trust with employees or customers and investors. You've touched on a couple of those already. And what I would like to find out from you is, what is a common mistake that you feel leaders make when trying to build trust, and how can they avoid it?
I've been in classes where people are presenting a webinar. I've been in classes in my church where somebody gives a Sunday school lesson. And almost all the time in those classes, they talk about what they know. Here's a webinar. Here's what I know. We're doing some of that. You're asking me questions. Here's a class. Here's what I know. Leaders make a mistake, I think, when they start with what they know. I think the first place you start is, what does the person in front of me need to know? So before we started recording this session, the question we ask is, think about our listeners, not our listeners. What do they need as a result of this discussion? And if we keep that center space, I just coached a young man. He finished his master's degree. He's about to go get a great job. Just barely finished coaching him. And I said, tell me what you're looking for. What's your elevator talk? And I've got it on my notes. It was funny. In the next 90 seconds, I looked at him and I said, you said I 9 times and me 6. If I'm an employer, I know you're interested in yourself. You've got to change the mindset. Your elevator pitch is not about you. It's about how what you know will help the company you go interview with be successful. And I think that's the mindset of good leaders. Leadership is not what you know and do. It's how what you know and do helps those you lead do their work better.
At DesignRush, we work with agencies and brands to help them grow and succeed. So from your perspective, how can businesses that prioritize stakeholder value successfully integrate agency partnerships into their strategies?
It begins with their clients. Who are the clients we're trying to serve? How do we keep them? By building intimacy with them. Who are the clients out there that have incredible opportunity and we could begin to do business with them? How do we build our relationship with them? The world is made up of relationships. What could we do to invite those potential clients into our house so they see who we are? They see what we do. There's a great line in Scripture, and again, you may not be religious at all, but nobody can ignore that Jesus was a great teacher. When he met his followers, the first line he said was, come and see. Come into my house. See what I do. Now, again, that's not a religious observation. It's an observation of one of the leaders of the world. I think DesignRush and other agencies, come and see. Come see what our culture is. Come see what our talent is. Come see what our leadership is. And we will try to build our talent, leadership, and culture in ways that are meaningful to you. We're not trying to do that for us. We're trying to do that for you. So I guess it's always good to quote Scripture. If you follow Scripture, come and see, maybe my line.
What specific practices would you recommend for businesses to ensure that their agency partnerships actually align with stakeholder value goals?
I think we get what we measure. I think we've got to get measures that connect to client goals and agency goals, that our job is to help you succeed. So we track that. We hold people accountable. We build that into the daily work that we try to make happen. I think the first practice, though, is not an activity. It's a mindset. What's my job as a leader? What's my job as a podcast host? It's to provide information so that, and I love so that those who listen will be able to do their work better. So for me, the first action is the mindset. Leadership is not about what you know and do. It's about how what you know and do adds value to others. And now we've said that some of the research says you have to say something 10 times before people get it. And unless you have a 9-year-old son and you tell him to clean his room 10 times and he still doesn't get it. But that's what we want to create, is this idea. I am here to help you do your work better.
How would you say businesses can actually measure the impact of these partnerships on delivering stakeholder value? You were just slightly touching on it just now. So if you could expand on that a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to it. Revenue per targeted customer. When a customer has a choice, she has a choice where she shops. You have a choice which airline you take. You have a choice which hotel you take. Are we going to get more revenue from our targeted customer? So if I'm at Mango, I want to focus on Kia because she spends quite a bit of money on clothing and fashion, and she's the person we want. What % of her fashion dollar goes to us this year? I love to go to big companies that are dealing with big industry, not just consumers, and to say, who are the 10 companies spending the most in your industry? What's your share of those companies today? So they spend 100. What % of that 100 do you get today? Can you move that from 40 to 50 to 60 to 70? Can you increase your share of a targeted customer? And when you get an increasing share of a targeted customer, that increases your profitability, and it's a great cycle that moves us forward. But that's what I would probably focus on. And the same is with investors. How do we get investors to have more confidence in the choices that we've made for our future?
Agencies today actually face intense competition, to prove themselves as true strategic partners. So from your experience, you've worked with many top organizations, Dave. So from your experience working with these top organizations, what specific qualities or practices set apart agencies that consistently deliver measurable stakeholder value and build trusting and lasting partnerships?
I love to go to a leadership team, and I share some examples of a leadership team and say, there's 4 domains that will differentiate us in the marketplace. One is strategy, our product, our customer intimacy, the mix of products and services. 2 is finance, our cost of products and services. 3 is our operations, our technology, our systems. And 4 is organization and people. If you have 100 points to divide, strategy, product, customer interface, cost, financials, operations, technology, people, how would you divide those points as to what's going to be our biggest differentiator? Where can competitors quickly match us? Across the board, organization and people gets usually 30 to 40%. It's the dominant piece. A competitor can copy product and service. We can buy a product, we can re-engineer it, we can sell it soon. A competitor can access capital. They'll match price. Everybody tries to match price and cost. A competitor in technology will try to match technology. We'll use the same vendor for AI. Our organization and people differentiate. The service, you use the word sparkle. I love your term. I feel a sparkle when I go into this store. Whatever you want to call that, that's hard to match. And that's where we want to focus. Now, once you get that mindset, we have found in our work, there's 3 things you focus on: talent, organization, and leadership. And if you focus on the people, the quality of leadership, and the quality of organization, then you're going to begin to have that sparkle that a customer is likely to see.
We were kind of touching on AI a little bit earlier on in the conversation. Now, generative AI is changing how businesses operate, but it's also risks reducing that personal interaction. Now, how can leaders and agencies use AI to enhance stakeholder value without compromising authenticity? This is the big question that we have these days. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us in terms of your insights there?
I'm going to go back 2 years when ChatGPT came out. It got popular. Yeah. We have a daughter who's a professor of sociology, and she called me and said, "Dad, my job's over." I said, "Sweetheart, why? What's going on?" She said, "All students are going to do is go on ChatGPT and write a paper. And they're just going to turn in ChatGPT papers, and they're very good. And have you ever seen that?" I said, "No, I haven't seen it." I confess 2 years ago, it was new. I got online and I said to ChatGPT, "Write a 200-word essay on the future of human resources, my area." I read it And I called my daughter and I said, my job's over. Because it's a great essay. And she said, Dad, what are we going to do? We're going to be unemployed. And I said, oh, I don't know. Then I read it again. Now, let me tell you two thoughts about AI. AI, and I hope people listen carefully, provides information from the past that improves decision-making. AI, and I read that 200-word essay again, and I said, that is a great essay. Here's what this thought leader said. Here's what this thought leader said. And it distilled the past. It did not create the future. So AI provides information about the past that helps us make decisions today. So what our daughter started doing, she said, you're going to turn in 2 papers. We want to look at the sociology of marriage patterns in South Africa versus Egypt or somewhere throughout Africa. Paper 1, AI. Paper 2, your paper. You're the thought leader. You're the human. What do you provide about what's next? And so AI can help me summarize the past brilliantly, but it cannot yet create the future. And second, AI doesn't yet distinguish good and bad information. We've done studies on the competencies of HR people. We have 30 years of data, 110,000 respondents. The last study had 28,000 people. Somebody goes on LinkedIn and does a study with their friends and gets 20 people answering a survey. AI looks at our data with 35,000, their data with 20, and they call them equal. They're not equal. They're not equal. Our data has much more substance, and I'm not just bragging. There are others who have better data than us. Be really careful about AI because it doesn't have the capacity sometimes to distinguish what's out there. So it focuses back, not forward, and its limitations are sometimes it gives inaccurate data because it's not working with good judgment.
So I would then want to find out from you if you have, by any chance, a specific example where AI-driven strategies strengthen stakeholder trust and engagement.
I had a big discussion with the head of AI for one of the 5 big consulting firms. I won't name it. We got into an argument a little bit because I said AI is the past. He said, no, I meet with a client and I do AI around the problem the client's got, and I get ideas that my team of 10 didn't have. And I said to him, he happened to be based in North America. And I said, those ideas may have come from Mozambique. They may have come from Sudan. They may have come because AI has a broad network of where data comes from, but they didn't come from nowhere. And he said, but that's new. And I said, it's new to you. And AI, he said, helps him and his team get information that they may not have had access to because he said, my team of 10 had a bias about what they knew and did. AI provides me insights that from around the world that I may not have seen. It's just a marvelous source of information. And that's the benefit of AI. Now, I said to him, the downside is you're still not doing stuff that's new to the world. You've still got to get that human creativity.
Now, Dave, businesses actually face increasing pressures from stakeholders and also rapid change. So what would you say are the mindset or techniques that leaders should adopt to create sustainable long-term success?
I think the mindset is, and for me, it's a fun one. When is 50% of what I know out of date? I've taught at the university for 40 years. I teach executive programs, and I've been part-time for most of that time. So in July, we teach an executive program on leadership, and I have my teaching notes. Every year do I update those notes? And the answer is yes. Every year, I've got to update my material. Every year, I've got to stay fresh. What's new? I mean, that idea, the business financials are a lag indicator of customer value. That's a pretty cool insight that we don't want to just be in HR. We don't want to be a lead indicator of the lag results. We want to be a lead indicator of the lead predictor. That's why we focus on customers. Boy, I'm going to start teaching that. I taught it today. And the more that we can stay fresh about kind of tumbling forward, I get frustrated when many people in our field recycle old ideas. Let's put new terms on an old idea. No, we got to spiral the idea forward. And that's what I hope business leaders will continually do.
So Dave, I've got the last question for you. Your work has actually fundamentally changed how organizations think about leadership, HR, and stakeholder value. So in this year of 2025, what's the one profound shift in mindset or strategy that you believe leaders must embrace to ensure that the organizations remain resilient and they thrive in the future?
I post every Tuesday on LinkedIn. We happen to be recording this on a Tuesday. My post today is with Ulrich. I think we're finding, both in our research and experience, strategic clarity. Of all the things we could do, the world is awash in information. With AI, we have unlimited access to information from around the world. Where am I going to focus? Where am I going to focus? Where am I going to focus? And I think that prioritization, that clarity, I hope 2025 will continue to proliferate new ideas. We need fresh thinking, but I hope it will also help us prioritize which ones create the most value. And so that's one of my hopes for this year, is to really help people, when we go to that restaurant with 300 menu items, which ones is going to work for me today? And it may vary. Today I feel like an omelet. Tomorrow I may feel like a steak. Next week I may feel like fish. But by the way, I almost always feel like dessert. So that's almost a given. But getting our idea around, we got to proliferate, but we also have to prioritize.
Yes. Proliferate and prioritize. Definitely. Dave, thank you so much for joining me on the DesignRush podcast today. It's been wonderful having you on the show. It's been such a privilege, such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune in to our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.